Good day, audience, and welcome to another episode of Ramble Shrapnel, the smaller addition to our main episodes of Ramble Shamble that allows the average listener to, whatever they do, maybe to go and take a little walk to the shops, or maybe you're at the shops and you listen to this fabulous episode, and this enables you to listen to our podcast in bite-sized versions of the main episode. Today, I am the host, Macky, and I am joined by the fabulous Eoton as always. Say hello, Eoton.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. And the topic of today from the main episode is the multiverse, time. What else? Well, was there a third part to this? Yotin, can you remind me?
Space, time, and the multiverse.
Yes. Such a broad topic that obviously in the main episode we couldn't cover everything. But we had an interesting idea for this little shrapnel of an episode. If you guys haven't listened to the main episode, I really recommend you do, because it will make more sense to this smaller ramble shrapnel. So, the topic that we're going to cover, which is going to be a fun one, is how would we most likely travel between or break into the multiverse? So basically, I'm currently in universe 001. How would I get into universe 002? Now, I think this is a really cool idea. Marvel, DC, and many other shows have done it many times where they've done many different methods. But I think this will be an interesting idea where myself and Jotun are going to throw our supposed workarounds on how we would most likely, or how would humanity. You could phrase it however you would wish. Jotun, I think you could go first, unless you need a bit of time.
No, I'm all right.
Cool. Go ahead.
So, this might come a bit from left field, but I don't think that we can cross the multiverse using any kind of physics that we know about. So, I think that it's actually useless talking about either space or time to do it. And so, I think that maybe a little bit different from what other people think, again, that the way in which we will be able to cross or transfer ourselves to a different universe is just through sheer power of will. I think the only thing that can actually do that is consciousness. So I don't think it's a coincidence that any like religions and attribute something special to willpower and consciousness. Even in the Judeo-Christian Bible and Torah and Quran, it says that God said, "Let there be light," and He like willed the universe into being. And so I think that, granted that dualism is an actual thing and that consciousness and our physical manifestations are separate, I think that only our consciousness can do it because they're the only things that aren't bound by the laws of physics. And that's not to say that it's not affected by physics, but I think that it's not controlled by it entirely. So I think that it'll be basically people going on a retreat, like some remote or desert thing, whatever, kind of like Jesus in the desert. And you basically just need to meditate until you reach some kind of enlightenment, or maybe kind of attune yourself to the different universe. And it probably has something to do with belief as well. So I'm not talking about raging dragons and uh, and thinking, oh, I'm gonna be in the galaxy of Star Wars or something, and then you get to be there. Although maybe that is the case. Maybe it's not really to do with consciousness, but entirely with belief. And if you just believe hard enough that you are in a different place, then you can actually go there. And just because of the stimuli from being in the hospital and the physical world, we it could be like a positive feedback loop where, because of all those stimuli, we end up believing more and more that we are in this specific universe, and then as a result become part of it. So I think that if you are either I don't know, ascendant enough or stupid enough or gullible enough to believe that you're in a different reality, then I think that's the only way in which you'll be able to cross over.
That's an
Because
interesting way to think of it.
because I think
Uh,
that if you move forward or backward in time, you're still limited to this time. And if you are
mm,
able to move upwards and downwards in time, it would still be this time. And if you are able to move on the Z axis, like deep or shallow in time, still still this universe and this space. But maybe consciousness is the only thing for what would be the X, Y, and Z of a different kind of dimension that would be able to go to different universes.
that's really interesting. So, one thing that comes to my mind. So about meditation, and I hear what you say, but would that mean that like if someone were to pass away, obviously that's a form of like a obviously very deep meditation. Would their spirit be capable of then going to or moving in those different directions as you mentioned before?
Yeah, I think so. But
Because that's like
so I think that there would be a limited capacity or a limited time depending on the person's own character before they realize that their, let's call it, their fetters have been released or their shackles have been unlatched or whatever, and they realize that they can go to the other universe because they're no longer bound to their corporeal form.
I'm just picturing Jotun strapped to a chair and heading towards a volcano to be chucked into the all-powerful lava to release Jotun from his mortal form to become the god he was destined to be. I am in a similar mindset, although I think it relates to the conservation of energy principle, where basically energy cannot be created or destroyed, just transferred from one media to another. And I have my kind of like scientific belief that we could, like teleportation, because matter is made of form of matter is the same thing as energy, where it cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred from one form to another. You can't make matter; it can only be transferred. And I think teleportation, where if we were to start developing teleportation, energy and matter is going to be coming like intertwined, where eventually, I hope, eventually,
I'm pretty sure they already are.
well, that's the thing. I hope.
Hmm.
I hope where when we have teleportation, when teleportation uh, gets invented and in a stable version, we would be able to use that. Would be our kind of gateway to another universe, because when we see teleportation in shows, TV shows, or in different media, we often only consider that the teleporter teleports you from like bit like Rick and Morty, but in the terms of where teleports only work on one physical plane. But I think like Rick and Morty, the teleporter wouldn't have that kind of confinement. We would be able to teleport, and if you think of how teleportation was like conceived by most of the media, is that there's different forms of teleportation. Like when was thinking when I think of the Star Trek one, you have to kind of almost guess that when that person teleports from one location to the other, their atoms are being pulled apart and it's getting really chaotic and horrible. So, and then they get reformed in another location. I love when they do that kind of like, what? But if you're stripping all the atoms and you're reassembling in a different location, are you still technically the same Macky? Are you technically the same Jotun at that different location? So, I believe that when we crack the code between energy and matter, and finding a way to transmit it between different locations, I think that's going to be our key to getting in there. And I see Jotun has sent me the picture of him being sacrificed to the all-powerful god. That one's good. But what do you think of my theory, Jotun?
So I think that that could be true, but that's still not telling me how. And I guess you,
So,
I guess
so
I
like,
kind of didn't either because it's not something we know about. But
well,
how
yeah,
would
that's where
teleportation? How do you think teleportation would then happen?
So I think that teleportation in my mind is obviously the first stages of teleportation would be that we'll have one send we'll have two, like a telephone. We'll have two ports where one would be the sender and the other one would be the receiver, and they might be capable of doing vice versa. Now I think that's how initially teleportation will work, is that we would have one port to another port, and it'll be basically a straight path to the other side. Now when teleportation gets a bit more worked on, it'll the ports won't necessarily be as needed at a certain distance or location, and eventually that would where because obviously teleportation is like telephones, the interference comes somewhere, and I believe that like when that interference happens and you like okay I'm gonna go visit Macky in UK, you walk in a teleporter, then thunderstorm, escom, or anything that interferes with that breaks, and suddenly you exit another side. But I believe that whoever received it was a different universe. So you walk out there perfectly fine. Hopefully, you might just become completely disfigured on the other end. But you come out that other side perfectly, and you realize that something feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. But unknowingly, you've transferred to a different location, a different universe. You've broken the multiverse unknowingly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Ooh,
But then you would
makes you
have
think,
no
eh?
idea where you're going.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I think that's how we'd break into the multiverse. We wouldn't have like a stable connection because everyone will just suddenly be like weirdly misplaced. There'll be two Eotons in that one universe. I would say, yo, Jotun's taking a while in the UK. And then in the universe that you disappeared in, that will probably be a reason why we should stop teleportation, because now my best friend Eoton has been killed because you disappeared. You didn't come out the other end. You went in. I know you went in, and you didn't come out, so you died, in my opinion. But you're fine, and you walk back. You go back to your home, and you see there's no Eoton. You're like, whoa, what the heck? How am I here? And then you find out that I must be in a different universe. So you know it's a multiverse. Your other self knows it's a multiverse, and who knows? That might be a way. But my universe that initially started it wouldn't know that there's a multiverse unless you came back. And I was like, yo, so you're back from the dead.
Yeah, I don't think that would lead you anywhere,
Okay.
because I think that by definition, any universe that you go to will have some aspect of physics that is different from ours. And I think that as a result of that, um, I think that the teleportation process is kind of like sending mail. You need to know
Yeah.
what your own address is and the address of the other side. And similarly, I think that if you attune your teleporting technology to, let's call it the address of this universe, which I would say is physics, then you would need to set the receiver end to the other universe's uh, laws of physics. But if you don't know that, it just means that everything is still set to your universe, so you'll just end up right where you started, or in a different place
So
inside our universe.
I hear what you say, but on the superposition timeline multiverse, what I'm saying is that because of this interference, the settings get readjusted. Like people in the olden days, the telephone would be able to receive other people's telephone calls. It was just because there was a confusion or mixture between the signals. Now, I think that our universes are so close together that a slight, say, interference from something, like I say, a storm or something like that, causes enough interference by that form, because there's a lot of static particles, because especially during a storm, the air around it gets highly ionized. So I think there's enough energy in that kind of area that when you're busy being transferred, there's enough static charge or some type of energy, excess energy, because maybe it's a really hot day or solar flare happens. There's enough energy in the surrounding area that's enough for your energy or energy and matter to be transferred to a slightly altered version of the universe. So, because we think that teleportation is just a simple in and out. But how I see it as happening is that you go in, your particles are being transferred like because it can't be destroyed. It can't be like disintegrated and then reintegrated at the other end. It will be flowing through as form of energy. I don't know what teleportation energy will be, but it'll be flowing across to the other side. And because of that interference at high ionization, your particles bamf into the other universe. Similar to how your spirit meditation is like, where you won't be tied to the mortal plane because technically you're able to transfer to all the different directions. Now, I'm not saying my one can do the different directions. I'm saying that my one is able to, because of the extra energy that powered it, the barrier is not as hard for it to pierce through. That's what my one's basically saying.
Yeah.
And your spiritual one, just to clarify before the end of this episode, are you when you leave your mortal physical body, are you just like a spectator then at the other universe, like you like watching it, like pretending like through a TV or something?
I don't think so. I think that I do think that consciousness and a physical vessel, if we can call it that, are linked in some kind of way. But I think that way just means that whatever universe you go to, you do need a vessel of some kind. So I think in order to transfer yourself, you would basically, as a result of the process, inhabit a new vessel. Now, whether that vessel, so I think that the vessel just has to be anything complex enough to house you, which is why I think that our human brains house consciousness in this reality because it's complex enough. But for all you know, in a different universe, their equivalent of a galaxy, which has enough nodes on the network of stars to be an analog for our brain complexity, would then be, I mean, you could end up being the consciousness of a universe. It doesn't matter as long as the system is complex enough. That's what I think.
So basically, you're just saying that we'd be isekai'd to another universe with elves and dragons and all kinds of things, eh?
Maybe. Could be.
No, I like that. No, I really. That's why I say that I agree with your spiritual thing, because it is like a form of energy. Because when you pass away or meditate, you're transferring that spirit energy to a different form, and that's why I say our things are similar but not quite identical.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that is all the time that we can offer to this Ramble Shrapnel, unfortunately. Audience, if you did enjoy this, I highly recommend you go watch the main episode, because we definitely go in a lot more detail, and not on this specific topic, but on topics that may intrigue you to investigate into the unknown universes of Multiverse and space and time. But guys, if you did enjoy this, we do appreciate giving us that like on any platform you are currently listening to this. We also have a Discord that you can join and be part of. Maybe you submit your own shrapnel ideas, and go listen to another Ramble Shamble episode, because we cover a range of topics that may interest you. But until then, we hope you guys come listen to our next episode. That's bye from Macky.
Bye, everyone.